for the heads up from Miss Eva.
Okay, usually she gives me a... Ta-da! Okay. The June 8th, 2022 Marine Resource Task Force meeting begins at 2 o'clock. And it's a call to order, so if you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hear, hear.
Oh, they missed the pledge. They're not patriotic.
Oh, my gosh. Okay,
This looks like a
Good.
conspiracy.
just in time for the roll call.
Ironically.
All right, maybe we'll start the roll call from this side, shall we?
Wendy DiGattano, present.
Robert Howell, present.
Mary Rose Spalletta, present.
Steve Johnson, present.
Greg Fossum, present.
Jennifer Rusk, present. Rose Larkin, present. Okay, can we scoot down a little bit, please?
And Chad Schutz, environmental staff, present. You good with that?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, let's do the shift here if we shall, if we can. Okay, roll call. Approve the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I second it. What, DiGattano seconds it.
Have a second discussion?
I just wanted to add one thing. Today's like World Ocean Day. And I just thought maybe we should recognize that.
What is it, Rose?
World Ocean Day.
When is it?
Today.
Today.
Oh, yeah.
June 8th.
Oh,
I just
Yep.
thought maybe
Should be a great time to bring it up.
just to recognize it.
Yep.
Just-
It's applicable to what we do, so that's great.
So I withdraw
you.
my motion to accept the
Well, I don't think we're going
agenda.
to add
We
it,
change
I
the-
think.
change it, no? Or we're okay with it?
We just wanted to say World Ocean Day.
Oh,
Yay.
all right,
Yeah,
good.
I
then.
think so.
Okay.
So any objections to the agenda? Okay. Motion was approved unanimously. Gotta remember who made those motions, otherwise I'll get in trouble. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes?
I move to approve last month's minutes as written.
I second. Greg Fossum.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Any objections? Discussion? Objections? Motion approved unanimously. Nope, good one. Oh, I see. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, public comment? Casper, are you there? Friendly ghost. Nobody here to make comment, so we'll move on to current items on the agenda. First being sea turtle conservation. Chad thought it'd be a good idea to leave this on, as I agreed, just as an update as we go through the season on where things are at and to provide feedback. So, how are things going, Chad? What,
So, kind of a typical year where there are, on the exterior lights, reminding owners and property managers to change their exterior lighting out to the sea turtle friendly bulbs and fixtures, including in parking lots, outdoor and parking lot areas as well. So those are slowly coming into line. The interior lights are still an issue. And that's just kind of a sporadic on the single-family homes. There's a lot of single-family homes along the CWA that had more interior and outdoor lighting than I would like, especially in that area. And then the ongoing issues with condos and the larger buildings with interior lights. Having said that, I mean, there are a lot of condos that are drawing the curtains properly and darked out for the interior. So showing that it can be done, it just takes persistence.
What's happening with the tin tip?
And then the obstructions are, we sent out warnings pretty much to all the vendors and some properties as well. And I would say maybe a third have kind of been able to remove everything off. And then the direction from council has been to follow the rule. If there's, and work with them to get a plan for them to, or them get a plan to come into compliance with their obstructions. How are you gonna get it off? What's the timeline? If we can't get it off, we're doing beach plantings, vegetation plantings to, in effect, make where they wanna store their equipment not in sea turtle habitat because it's behind the vegetation.
Right.
To answer Member Rob's question, so the direction from council was, or the motion from council was to put it back to 45% on the new construction and the retrofit windows. So reverting back to the FTEP standard.
Correct. So right now, though, it's in a state of limbo, correct? It was tabled, and the request was to change actually the title, to remove any percent tint in the actual title. Is that correct?
Yeah, the advertisement wasn't in line with what was being done, so therefore it was considered an improper advertisement. So it'll be advertised in accordance with their motion and revisited at the next town council meeting, is my understanding.
Which will be in August, will be September?
I can double
July,
check on that.
August. I guess August.
I think the next one's in August, but I'm not certain.
Right. So I think the, just for those that didn't see it, I think the thought process there was that really that there's no empirical data available that actually assigns the correct tint value to protect the turtle nesting beach. So they felt that the 15% was arbitrary, although we know it works. I think the question is does 20% work? Does 25% work? And nobody has that answer.
What was the price difference between 50 and 45, do we know?
I think it depends on who you talk to. I think it really does. To me, I mean, again, that's my opinion. Everything I've heard is different. We have our own data that we produced that showed it was between a -2 and a +9% difference. But, what I thought was very interesting was there was a lot of information that was talked about that was certainly incorrect. That people wondered I had a question of why these window lobbyists were there. I mean, who do they represent? So that was of interest because a lot of
So
the.
I can answer that if you.
Yep.
So the fenestration, which is a fancy word for windows and doors, I guess. They contacted FWC, I guess, as the industry was becoming aware of FWC's direction, and as that got implemented across localities, they reached out to FWC, and so FWC is now in dialogue, and they're working out and doing that experiment over the summer. But I think that's how they got involved. I think they've been in talks with FWC for about a year or so now.
So they found this, but they also had mentioned that we're the only community that was using the 15%, which is untrue, correct? Holmes Beach, I think there's 4 of them. I mean, it's just,
Are they a government group? No, they're a private company.
It's
A manufacturing?
like an industry association, so,
course, yeah.
Oh, it's an association.
different window manufacturers would be members of the fenestration industry group.
right. What was interesting, though, is if, a 15% window apparently is not 15%, it's 9. A 45% window is not 45%. I mean, so there's some manufacturing issues that they don't actually meet the indoor to outdoor transmittance levels, correct, Chad?
Yeah, so what's being made isn't necessarily gonna hit the mark for where a certain cutoff may be.
Right.
So they typically make, let's say 30%, they typically make maybe 42%, you know, so it's not exactly 45 or it's not exactly 15 to your point.
Yeah, I mean, Island Wind's case, I mean, it was 30, I mean, it's 30%, not 45, or I think is what they quoted, correct? And they also said, I think, the FGIA person there that stood in not this meeting, but the prior meeting had said that 15% is actually 9%. So that certainly doesn't help the case, but it also makes sense that maybe they're getting involved so they can sort of guide their way through and represent what's going to be in the best interests of the fenestration industry. But I think they have a point, though, that how do you ask somebody to go to 15% when in fact it could be 20%? I mean, so this summer, they're going to actually do that testing. I mean, FWC is running it. I mean, they position themselves to say they were sort of conducting it themselves, but they are in assistance to FWC. And, you know, the point is we know 15% does work, but I think between 15 and 45, that number isn't available. So the idea here, I think, and it's this summer, correct, Chad, that they're going to try to produce the empirical data that then
Yeah, and-
guides the decision-making in the future.
Right, and if you were able to look at the agenda, you can see a letter from Dr. Trindell, you know, stating that FWC does support, you know, 15%.
Continues to recommend, right?
Right, but they are, you know, researching to see if there's some sort of cutoff.
Right. So that's where it stands. You know, in some respects, you have to understand that, and it's. But again, I think our first recommendation was to actually put a moratorium for just 1 year. So is there something that is there a recommendation we may want to make to the council versus just saying let's just roll it back to 45 and leave it? Is there a recommendation to say as soon as that number is available, that we implement it in our ordinance prior to the, you know, the legislation and the bringing it, you know, I don't know if you want to call it codification, but the implementation by DEP into the model ordinance and that whole sort of administrative process? Can we take that number and request that as soon as it's available, you drop it in? I mean, I'm just looking at other
Right.
options that could fast track it.
Or should we just recommend that we put the ordinance on pause until we get the results of the test, and then
That was our original recommendation based on
See what it
exactly
is?
that, was that.
that
you know,
seems to be what,
I mean, do you want,
What do people think?
where do y'all sitting here on just guiding the council? Because the next steps are that they'll vote on just rolling it back to 45%. And in my opinion, they will wait until it's sort of mandated to the model ordinance to touch it again.
So will they be voting before or after the new data comes back?
I would say it's before. They'll be voting before that data is available. I don't
So
think
can
that's
we
gonna
ask
be
them
available.
Can we ask them to wait on the vote? Because it's just gonna be more work if they don't.
Well, I think the problem is that you've got people that are waiting for that information to move forward. So are they gonna order windows and then in 2 months find out that they can't? I mean, you know, we had recommended just work through the variance process, but they chose not to do that. So, I don't know, I think that they're anxious to define how to allow people to move forward. If they're-
Hypothetically, I mean, town council could vote to make them order new windows then if they did it before that comes in, right? So like they do their vote and the people already ordered windows to go with that vote, but then new information comes in, then they have to change their ideas and their ideals to go with the new data. And then the people,
Or provide a variance, let's face it.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't go away, the
Right.
variance process.
I think once they get their permit, if the ordinance changes, their permit is
grandfathered in.
valued for that particular time. So, no, they're not gonna have to buy new windows.
So everybody's gonna scramble to get the new ones just in case then maybe.
Yeah, I mean, doing a lot of research in my career, first of all, turtle nesting doesn't end until September, October. Then getting the data, analyzing the data, you're talking January? Probably before,
Probably before the next season, I would guess.
yeah. So I don't know if we can make any recommendation now because we don't know the data. Nobody does.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was leaning towards, because we don't have enough information, but I think, stressing to council that we don't have enough information to make a decision, so neither should you, is what I would lean towards.
I don't know, I think we should stick with our guns. We didn't just come up with that number or this recommendation lightly. This is what we think is in the best interest of the beach, and I think we should still recommend that and suggest that they adopt the best practice ordinance and then opt to allow for variances for anyone who applies, especially during this limbo period where we're awaiting some statistics. And then they can go ahead, and this will be in effect, and if they choose not to enforce it or they choose to give people variances, that will be only when it has been thought out. Not just to backslide. I think it's the wrong thing to backslide. But
No,
that's just the way I think. I think we should stick with it
I
and
agree.
tell them to give people variances if they want.
Oh, I agree with that completely. I think what I'm more leaning, because,
Because they're gonna do what they, we're
What-
just an advisory committee.
right.
I
well,
don't think we should try and second guess them.
Oh, no, I don't want to second guess what we have said or have done. It just, I know the people that are going to argue it are going to be like, well, where are the facts? Where are the data? And,
Well, I thought we
They
had
have-
done
they
our
have- they have a
homework.
point,
Yeah.
yeah.
And people are shading is what they're doing now. I don't think our data's faulty. I don't think that this would, I think this is definitely in the best interest of the beach. And that's what we're tasked with doing. What's the best interest for the beach?
I definitely agree with that. I'm trying to think of long-term as far as
Right.
changes from new data. But I agree, I mean, it is the best for the beach to protect these guys as best we can. And I think everybody understands that that's what we're trying to do, but we also have to essentially,
And if we say this tint is just aspirational, that means we'll never achieve it. We need to say, this is what we want, this is what we need. And if you can't do that, give us a reason why you can't do it, and maybe we'll say, okay.
I think the position, again, is that even, they're willing to choose a tint level if it's supported by empirical data. Because right now, if we say 15%, we know 15% works, but again, does 20% work, does 25, or does 30% work? And if you're a homeowner, then that's very meaningful because your view is improved, let's say.
Do you think there really is a difference in the view?
Well, again, that's subjective.
Okay,
That's
right.
subjective,
Okay,
but
that's
that's,
another
that people
topic,
have
right.
that ability, have that right to be, to have their own opinion.
Okay.
So I think that's the challenge we have. So the question now becomes, and is that once that's available, what is the best way to implement it? I guess you can just go right back and ask them to look at the sea turtle ordinance again. There'd be a new seated council at that point, and it may be a good time to revisit.
Which they even could, even if we didn't recommend it.
Of course.
Right. So we just need to decide what we decide.
Well, is there a recommendation or not, or do you just, again,
Right.
just to go the way it goes, and we'll wait for that information?
I think we've made a lot of recommendations and things, and if we shoot ourselves in the foot and make the wrong recommendation, it's just, more times you cry wolf and there's no wolf, they'll stop listening.
Sure, I think our position is just that it's gonna take a generation anyway to implement it. So the later we wait, the later it's gonna take, right? So even if you have remodeled windows and new windows, the majority of there's only so many that get remodeled and so many that new homes get put up every year. So it's still gonna take a generation to eventually replace all the windows on the entire beach. Unless people like Diamond Head, who are following Pink Shell's, lead, go ahead and do it willingly. And that's really, I don't know if you guys heard that. Diamond Head is gonna completely redo their property to make it turtle safe, 15% on their windows. And I believe they're gonna enter into the agreement with Sea Turtle Conservancy, I believe.
Is that something
Dad?
you're aware
No,
of?
they're not. They're not gonna sign the agreement with Sea Turtle Conservancy.
I don't think they're signing the agreement, but my understanding is they are replacing all the sliders for the rooms. They are tinting the common area that's on that second floor. That's kind of like a happy hour kind of spot, or it goes till sunset,
When were you made aware of this?
a week or so ago. So they are doing a dune planting to reconfigure their storage for obstructions, and they are replacing their pool light and some other exterior lights to get long wavelength, downward directed, shield it from the beach.
And how were you made aware? I mean, who, did you call them and discuss this with Neil, or did Neil call you, or?
Yeah,
I'm
just
curious.
had a meeting with Neil.
So another thing that came up at the meeting when we did suggest to there was a motion to suggest to the town council to pursue or look into, do they want us to look into the enforcement process that is being used up in not Lido Key,
Longboat.
Longboat Key? And the answer was yes. So I guess what we can do is to look into that and provide another recommendation to them with more information. Because right now, so Chad, just, I mean, again, I know you don't ever have the numbers right with you, but have there been actual fines yet? Or are we still primarily have warnings in place?
Primarily warnings. We're getting citations out now.
Because that's, I mean, the town council, I think, said it many, many times that, I mean, some are suggesting that we find them in the submission, I think is what a couple, the mayor himself and also I think Councilman Adderholt are fans of enforcement to get it under control. Good. Oh, the other thing is there I mean, if this is gonna be on the agenda, is there some kind of KPIs or, key performance indicators or some measurement as to the performance or the enforcement compliance? Is there some kind of a metric that we can use that's easier than just asking for information every time? I know that the information is on the website, right? There's a compliance website. But
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can ask. I'm not sure how they're reporting that.
Right, but I mean, is there something that if this task force said, and I know we don't direct staff either, we understand that we'd have to go to council, but is there something, because I know council also had asked, and I don't think Roger had those numbers either, but is there a metric that can say, again, I don't know what it would say, number of warnings, number of fines, repeat fines, those that have fixed it, I mean, just again, I don't know what that matrix looks like.
Similar to what Jen was talking about the last time.
Well, that is more like a process, the Longboat Key is the process of how it gets taken through, but this would be a summary then of where, a moment in time. What's the performance look like? I mean, it's a,
Well, that is exactly what they do, though. That is I mean, obviously, they can't do a moment in time. They can't do day by day. But what they can do is, once they visually put eyes on a violation, they can immediately make contact or try, verbally or knock on the door. They can immediately send out a letter of a potential, or no, not a potential, but a violation. And they have to immediately take care of it. There is no 24 hours. There is immediate take care of it. Then, once the person, the enforcer, goes back to make sure that this has been resolved, and if it hasn't, the fine goes directly to them. And that is a 1-week circle. Not a 1 month, not a 2 month, not a 3 month, but a 1 week. So if the enforcer goes out 2 times a week, let's just say 2 times a week, they get a complaint from someone. That first time that they go out, they immediately put the complaints at the top of the list. So they directly go on the 7-mile stretch to the first visual or potential complaints. So they go to the first potential complaints first. They see whether or not there's a complaint that's viable, that there is an actual violation occurring. Once they document that, then that's it. They notify them, they send a letter, the town sends a letter, and then they have the next go-around, the next week. So violations have to be taken care of, immediately, but the next week is when they go to see whether or not the violation has been taken care of.
Okay. So would you be willing to be the lead on reviewing that process and in order to make a recommendation?
Well, Chad, how does it work?
Thank you.
Instead of recreating it, how's it work now? Are you getting many
We're talking about the code enforcement process?
for lighting? Now, how many reported violations, because we have to call it reported because it's not by you guys, that would be a citizen complaint, versus how many that you directly observe yourself?
I'm not keeping stats on how many complaints I have versus how many.
Okay.
But then what happens with that, the complaints and when you see a problem? I know, first of all, I don't think you knock on the door. That's police business.
Yeah, correct.
So you can't knock, I would knock on the door.
I can do anything, but no, I'm not going to go at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night and knock on people's doors.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. So the process is dictated by Chapter 162 state statute. We warn, we cite. First citation's $250, second citation's $500. Anything that's irreparable and irreversible can be fined up to $5,000, such as a take.
How do we warn, Chad? Via the mail?
So yeah, I try to do as much as I can via email, which is a task in and of itself, but it does get things done quicker. Regardless, everybody's getting a written warning to just keep everybody even with regards to enforcement.
How do we know that they get it?
There's certified mail.
They do get it
There's
certified?
posted on the property, and there's three things. I think it's like certified mail to the property, certified mail to the owner if there's a different address, and then posted to the property physically with blue tape.
And that's the first step, really.
Yeah, well, that's for warnings, that's for citations, that's any time where.
And how long are the warnings usually when you post it? Like, what's the communication usually? To reconcile it, the warning?
Yeah, so we have to give them a reasonable amount of time per statute, so we give them 5 days. Come into compliance.
Is that 5 days before a written warning or 5 days?
5 days from the time that they receive that written warning, yeah.
They can be fined, and you're saying it's a state statute, you have to give them that 5 days?
I'm not sure exactly how the state statute reads, but I believe it's something to the effect of a reasonable amount of time.
And if they contact you and say, oops, my bad, I'm going to go fix it, then what?
That's
You-
great, that's what we want is
Yeah,
compliance.
then you go out and check it,
Sure, I'm
and then-
checking the beach regardless.
Right.
Everything's checked.
and that's erased.
No, nothing's erased. If they receive a warning in 2 months from now, then
Oh,
it's a
good.
citation.
What is a time frame from when a citizen or someone gives you a potential violation? Is there anything that says, hey, someone's giving you a visual that's not town staff of a potential violation of a lighting or any sort of violation, town ordinance violation? Is there a time frame of when you're supposed to go out there and actually visually see it?
So I'm going out 2 times a week.
No, what I'm saying is if someone sends you an email saying, hey, I've seen a violation of something going on, what is the town's responsibility to actually go out and see the violation after a citizen's complaint? Is there anything that says, hey, after a citizen of the community sees a violation, should we go out 24 hours? Is there anything that,
Are you asking what the response time is?
thank you, yes. Is there a response time to a violation from the
I
community?
would say it depends on the complaint, the details that are with the complaint, any images that may be with the complaint, as to what the timing on a subsequent warning might be.
Okay, is there, I'm not trying to grill you or anything, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I didn't coach her, I want you to know this, because I said that.
I'm sincerely just curious. Is there a time, once a visual complaint, or once you have actually visually seen a violation, is there a time where you've got to make contact with the violator, or the person that has been, who has made the violation? Is there a 24-hour time? Is there a 1 week? Meaning, if you see a light on a piece of, on a property, is there something that says you've got to make contact with them within 24 hours?
I don't think state statute has any time limits in that regard.
Okay, so you can basically send out or contact them with the violation within 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or, I mean, whenever.
I'd have to see if there's a limitation to that
Okay.
effect.
I'm just curious. Thank you.
Is that it? You get your questions answered?
Well, I
Councilor
actually
Manos?
have more.
So, I mean, I guess if we're gonna,
I do. If I want to dive into this, I really
so
want
I guess maybe, instead of dancing around it, I guess, the question is if, so you're out there 2 times a week, right? 2 days out of 7, right? And again, that's, I mean, this is no criticism of you, obviously it's the town's direction. That's 28% or 27% of the time, right? It's I mean, technically, you were checking for compliance 25% of the time, because the other 5 days of the week, you could do anything you want. So if there's complaints that come through those days, I think the impression is that some are followed up, some aren't. Is that, I mean, that would seem like that's some of the feedback that's coming back. So the question is what is the SOP? What can people that are trying to contribute, what can they expect?
So what I've asked Turtle Time to do is to put the address in the subject line, give a photo that has lat long, such as a solocator. If possible, detail what's going on so I can see. It's not always clear whether it's an interior, an exterior, pool light. Usually you can tell, but
Right.
just because of glare. And if there's been a lot of those cases that I've gotten from Turtle Time where I'm getting that email. It looks legit. It has a timestamp on it, and I'm sending out a warning based on that.
I think one of the issues too, though, is that, what if they choose not to do that? I mean, is there still gonna be compliance?
Yeah, so
mean,
you
yeah, it's
just
not
you-
their
you know, you follow up.
responsibility.
Yeah, follow up on the next outing.
And then you do 2 times, and I think we talked about this before, but normally you don't, you said you do portions of the beach. So what, do you have the same sort of fixed, you just choose where each time is different?
Yeah, I mean, I think as soon as I have a pattern where I'm going out every
Right, they can anticipate you, but
yeah.
I'm just wondering about, I mean, not
go out
saying
on-
when you're
on
going, but,
weekends, we can go out on mornings, we can go out on nights, we can go out any day of the week.
right, but usually you don't do the entire island, right?
Right. I mean, the idea is what we're looking for is compliance, and that's kind of the measure. I can honestly say that there's been a lot of improvement since May 1, and there's been a lot of improvement since 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So you are going to get dozen plus people every night on the beach with flashlights, you're going to get dozens of interior lighting violations every single night. You're going to get, you know, there's violations on the beach every night. So the only thing that's going to work is a deterrent, which is a citation. And on the problem properties, it's going through that cycle as soon as possible to enact that deterrent.
This question's coming out of a place of ignorance. I'm gonna put that out there right away, but what is the range of beach patrol's ability to do some of this? Are they allowed to, maybe not write citations, but enforce more in the way of, okay, well, this property was breaking something that you would have written a citation for, so why can't they just tell you and then you just do it? And if they are already, that's where my ignorance comes in, but either more or better training or more extensive training on their part, so then they would be able to enforce this to not only take some things off of you for you being out there, but they're out there every day, as to my knowledge. So why are they not able to enforce this? Because they're here after dark, aren't they?
I think, my understanding is they're done at 7.
Okay.
So when you say beach patrol, you're
The
referring
blue,
to
the
base?
blue guy, yeah.
Yeah, they're working till 9 o'clock.
Okay. So, I know we've talked a little bit about, in the past, about extending their things for different reasons or having an extra person out later or something like that, but would they be able to enforce these kinds of things? Is that within their means? Regardless of their schedule, whether they're on the island, but at this time, are they able to enforce those kind of things?
I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to speak for them.
You know, I figured you would know what they enforce and don't enforce. Like, what do they do then? And this is, I'm not trying to, you
Right,
know,
well,
slam at them. I'm just curious as what do
Yeah,
they
I'm
enforce?
not a base supervisor. I don't detail
Yeah, I
their
think
job.
the question is
description.
whether there needs to be more resources, and that's something you have to
Yeah.
go to the council, and I think the council did look into that, and I think you had responded that currently you're capable of doing it.
I was under,
At the meeting? So I think now it's a matter of, I mean, I haven't looked into the I mean,
I thought you guys
Compliance
worked hand in hand. I
on the
apologize.
beach.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it's not only me who's doing the enforcement. I mean, I depend a lot on administration who's doing the hard yards on the paperwork. The easy part is going out on the beach and taking photos at night. That's the easy part.
So what does Beach Patrol do then?
that's the whole nother, I mean,
Is it a whole nother
it's
thing?
getting off the story.
Okay, I didn't know. That's why I'm curious. I just,
Yeah,
They do trash, they do supervision.
oh, okay.
okay.
Before we go off the topic, I have one more question, Chad. Can you tell me how many fines have been levied this turtle season for lights or obstructions? Has anyone been fined?
So there hasn't been any citations written as of yet. Let's see.
We have some pending, is that it?
There are plenty pending.
Pending would be technically warnings.
No, that'd be like pending citations. So, yeah, over 100 exterior and interior, outdoor areas and parking areas. I would say it's on the order of about 150 warnings
Wow.
have been
That's a lot.
issued.
Is that more than an average, than, say, last year? Well, last year was different.
I mean, you're not really, you can say whatever you want to say with numbers, but I don't think that's a fair comparison. There's a lot of biases in there to say, is this more than last year? Sure, but last year was a different year with
Right.
different direction and different circumstances.
One other thing, is there some way that we could make sure that all of our residences have the number of their house somewhere visible on the house? Because I know I sent you a couple of things, and I walked around the property and ended up looking at one on the left and one on the right and trying to figure out what it should be, but not knowing if that's really it, and saying,
It's kind of an interesting concept, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the issues with getting the complaints. There's been a number of times, and that's why it takes a little bit more research with the complaints to verify the address, even if they think they know the address. There's been a few times where there's just,
so maybe that's something
even I make
we should
mistakes.
ask
well,
council to find some way to
Wait.
have people slap their number on their house.
honestly,
Well,
Ms. Mary Rose, you can't see a house number at night unless you're doing a spotlight.
No, but there is a database that other communities use, that once a for example, a solocator picture is taken, or even a photograph is taken, the town has access to be able to zoom in on any property that has a violation. At least other,
Yeah, but we have to be able to tell them which one it is, Jen. And sometimes when you have those
you
multiple,
mean, who do you mean by who? Who?
like,
You have to, I mean, you have to be able to identify the property the light's coming off, to be fair.
Yes, but when you
so
say
I go up
who,
there and I know that it's this building, but
You
I
can
don't
drop-
know if
you
it's
can look
1,
at-
2,
you can
3,
look on
4.
You can look on iPhone, I see what you're saying.
I don't know
Okay, so,
what I'm saying is a municipality has, there are databases and there are sites that they know each individual property. So, for example, Chad, who is responsible for visually seeing a violation, can take a picture and zoom right in onto a property and the address. They have that access. They have that.
like a GIS layer or something.
Yeah,
So if you go to maps,
right,
just Google Maps,
right.
you can zoom in.
Okay, so,
Yeah, just to clarify, we do have ArcGIS provided by Lee County that I can use. I think the issue is with like complainants, just verifying that address.
Can you
That's where a
repeat?
solocator comes in handy because it has the latitude and longitude, which you can punch in.
Okay, so that's what I'll rely on then.
Yeah, solocator is a good tool.
okay, I say we move on to the next topic here, Shorebird Conservation.
So we're not gonna come up with any sort of plan to take to the town council for,
I didn't hear any motions,
no, okay,
I mean, for,
right,
With
just
the
wanted to
data,
clarify.
Make a valid motion,
Okay.
in my opinion.
good? Shall we move on? Shorebird Conservation? Update, Chad, how's that going down there? I'm not,
Good. The FWC, temporary employee. I'm not sure what they call them, but Robin is her name. She's doing a really good job, giving some very detailed reports that have been useful. They did have a washover. It's a pretty low-lying beach, so I forget how many tern nests got overwashed. So that was an issue. I think there was some predation by seagulls. That was an issue, but it seems like they're bouncing back. I can get some. It'll be in my monthly report to town council how May went, but sand spurs are still an issue. So.
what's that program where they have to walk in front of the, are they still doing that ahead of the rakers? Or wasn't there, they were looking for volunteers to train to
Yeah,
help?
so
Is that still a thing, or?
yeah. I mean, anybody can call and try and get trained up as a bird monitor.
I also
Bird
brought up, last time that, or maybe a couple months ago after our walk, that we were invited to, be,
Bird watchers.
no, not a bird watcher, but just, do you remember what she had said, Chad? Just a supporter, and, I wish I could remember her.
Yeah, I don't either, and I was there, and all I can think about is that we had discussed.
An alliance, part of the alliance, thank you,
Yeah.
sorry. Game. To be part of the alliance, and I think we should, just as, Murph.
Oh, you're talking about that Punta Gorda organization or something? Are you saying the FWC's alliance, or is this other organization that
FWC,
you brought up?
Becky, when she did our
Oh.
walk, she had said, I think it would be a good idea for Murph to be alliance with the Southwest Florida, I'm sorry, I wish I had the paperwork in front of me, but I brought it up to the committee, and I think it would be a great idea.
Maybe you can get us information on it? I mean, that's what that means, what we do. like that.
Okay.
And I would like to mention that we had discussed, volunteering to go and pull out sand spur plants without the chemicals, and we were kind of behind the date, and then they sprayed anyway, and it's like, to be proactive, can we look at organizing something? I mean, I talked to people from Master Gardener Volunteers of Lake County. I talked to some people from the Sierra Club, Audubon. I mean, there were lots of different groups with different individuals that would be willing to help go pull weeds out, but we need to do it before
Right. before the-
January,
before
February,
the-
March, before the chemical spraying
Before the final
occurs.
moment, we got
Yeah.
rushed into this year. We had talked
Yeah,
about
so
that.
that's just
that we
kind
would
of
get
a-
together. Right. I mean, we have to reach out to the FWC earlier in the year before they begin this to see what they're gonna do next year.
Right,
I think
because they
it's-
need to provide escorts for us to do that, so.
Right, during season, you're saying. I think they elected, I mean, essentially not to allow us into the nesting area, and that broadcast spraying would be an easier way to manage it versus trying to do it manually. Is that how you remember it, Chad? Basically, yeah. So I think the challenge for us is to get into the decision-making process earlier.
And I don't know when earlier is, earlier could be
Well,
now.
it's on us is the problem. I don't think they're gonna reach out to us and say, hey, listen, now, it's 4 months ahead of that point. Can you give us your feedback again so we can, follow it? But maybe the point would be that we figure out what date it is that we need to reach out to them and say, listen, what are your options besides broadcast spraying of herbicides? Can you please produce more? I mean, I don't know what else
Did we indicate that we were interested in helping? Do they know that in general, so they won't be surprised when they hear from us again? We did, right?
I thought so.
That was
Yes.
the motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So can we make a new motion that we will contact FWC and find out when it would be advisable to do hand pulling of, they're not invasive, they're native plants, but to have a actual hands-on removal.
Ask them if they can provide us with a vegetation management plan.
Oh, there you
How
go.
they're gonna manage that pre-season,
Or how can we help?
right?
Yeah, how can we help? This is what we're willing to do, or what we're able to do, or something?
Mhm.
Yeah. I like that, because it leaves it more open-ended, because maybe they don't need help with that, but something else we could do, they'd be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there needs to be a motion for that, but I can send an email.
Okay.
Good.
Sound good?
Sure, that's great.
Email that to Becky. Is that, would you suggest that the best person, Chad? Knowing their hierarchy, it'd be Becky, right? Rebecca Schneider?
Yep.
Okay.
Is shooting the seagulls the only viable option to eradicating them from killing the babies in the nests?
I think it's a strong deterrent.
Yeah, I think you would need to ask that to FWC. I mean, they have a lot more experience with regards to predation management. I'm sure that they've tried everything that they can before, people who are tasked with saving wildlife are starting to, kill one thing to save the other.
A wolf and deer situation, you take out all the predators, and we have to be the predator, kind of thing.
Right. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, we're good with Shorebird Conservation? Sound good? All right, let's move on to exotic vegetation. I wasn't quite sure we had that covered last, so I told Chad we didn't want to exclude you, Rose, at all, but also just as a reminder that that's sort of in the wings, right? That we need to,
Keep going, yeah. I checked the website, like even a few hours ago even, and we still don't have the list of people with invasive plants on their property. So that's kind of something to put up there. And I also really looked at the website, like I really looked at it, and it's ironic, if you go to the environmental information portion, and then go scroll over to the left-hand side and go down to native plants and click on it, it says native plants in bold print, and then underneath it says Marine Resource Task Force really recommends putting in native plants. And then there's a picture on the right-hand side. And the picture is of an area on some street on Fort Myers Beach, and it's like, it's a circular roundabout, and it has rocks, and it has mulch, and then there's a umbrella tree, which was one of the 10 invasive plants we had targeted, and a coconut palm, and a bunch of other stuff. It's like, oh, there should be like a big circle with a line through it with red. This is not what you want to put. And it's like, oh my gosh. And I was like, it's like, I mean, I've looked at the website before. It's like I never really looked at it. So,
Can you make a recommendation? I mean,
I'd
I
like
can
to
tell
make
you,
a
Jenny Dexter
recommendation.
is
We need a
probably
different
not an expert.
photo for that website. And then the tree protection, we had reviewed that 2 meetings ago. Chad had proposed that to the town council, and then we looked at it again, and so that's still kind of up in the air.
I think it's awaiting second reading, Chad, is that right, or is first?
That's still first
reading?
official reading.
Yeah, still for first reading, yep.
So that's still kind of out there somewhere, and then there's the whole vegetation ordinance things to follow up with that. So there's still a lot of vegetation stuff.
Well, there's a number of things actually, and maybe Chad can help us, because obviously his work schedule and what he can get to and where things are at, and the prioritization between the dredging and the beach renourishment, all that kind of stuff. But right now, there's obviously the sea turtle ordinance that's live and kicking right now. You have the tree ordinance. Is that would you think that would be the next one that would go, Chad? Since I think that's
Yeah, I think that in the agenda
included
management.
on our part, right? That's conclusion, again, so we understand what we have to do.
Yep.
Okay, so sea turtle,
And there's also the irrigation and water shortage is on the short list.
right, and we don't have to do anything on that. I mean, I talked to Chad, we actually did, collectively did everything we were supposed to do, so now it's just really a formality, I think, to get it codified. So that comes after trees, and then,
The vegetation ordinance, which
And
is
then
the whole big
vegetation.
encompassing thing, which is,
it's pretty involved, yeah, it's more involved.
it's very involved. And even now, like the town council's looking at properties trying to do development on corner lots and the right of way and how much easement to have, and that's a huge thing, so.
For site, you mean, or?
Yeah, for the big buildings, yeah, it's like 25 feet, 30 feet, 10 feet, yeah.
Right, but I see
But
what
that's
you're
just
saying.
for
Yours is
development, that's not even
development, right.
vegetation, so, but it's like, well, that's all gonna kind of fall, it's gonna be like dominoes. Once that gets established, then you can look at what vegetation
Well, but that doesn't involve
might have
our
to do that.
environmental liaison here. so-
No, it just, he has to wait for that.
Right, so good, you're just,
He has to wait for that. And then, I know we always say that information goes out to Fort Myers Beach residents on their water bills. And I got a water bill, and I looked at the email, and then I went and looked at my bill, and then I went and opened my bill, and then read down through it, and it's like way at the bottom, at the very end, there was some information about, you should have hurricane insurance or whatever, and it's like, and I'm not really sure it has anything to do with MRF, but I'm thinking that it would be nice, because a lot of the things that we've talked about with the turtles and the shorebirds and fertilizer and everything else, that information goes into the email that they send out to people that have automatic payments for their water bill versus
the
having it
attachment.
buried 6, 7, 8, 9 pages down in their actual water bill, which, to be honest, don't look at, because it tells you on your email how much your bill is.
I mean, that's good input, Rose. I don't know how,
So
what's a good way to communicate that, Chad? Just let,
no.
Sure, Ms. Dexter's listening to this.
watching this, but I mean, that's
No,
a
but I'm
great
serious,
recommendation. I don't know
that's-
if there's functional issues, you can't do that, but instead of putting it in the attachment, you put it in the body of the email. So good, she's listening, then we're good to go.
Even a blurb, just to go look at it, because it's like, I kept waiting to see all this information, and I didn't. So I finally went back and searched through all my bills, and I was like, yeah, and I felt really bad because my June 2nd bill had nothing about that fertilizer should not be sprayed or put on from now through October. It's like, why was that not on my June 2nd bill? It was just about I should have hurricane insurance.
Okay, so, to finish my thought here, so, the order, sea turtle, tree, irrigation, vegetation, is that correct? And this group here is tight on all those already, input and everything else, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can.
Just,
make
no, I mean,
additional-
for agenda purposes for the future, I mean, these are all tight, correct?
Yeah, but I mean, like with the sea turtle ordinance, if, given the dialogue, y'all wanted to make.
Oh, that's ongoing, yeah.
As with-
Right, and as we might bring it up too, if the tree ordinance comes up and they ask for
Yeah,
clarification.
they're all living documents, so if there's something
Okay,
you see that, you want to give additional input to council, give additional input to council.
okay, but I think those are the four, right? I don't think there's any else that are floating out there. Not that that's not enough, but those four are floating along, and also Rose, I mean, my recommendation is if you, Jenny Dexter's very approachable, I mean, if you had to ask her about that list, you can do that. I don't think there has to be a formality associated with it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay, and that goes for everybody, you guys, got something, just go right to the source, that's what I always say. Good, so we go on past exotic vegetation, let's do the MRF pamphlet, there we go. We've got two more items. And any updates on the MRF pamphlet?
Nope, that's gonna take about 5 seconds. I'm still waiting on pictures and graphics to submit, because for the pamphlet, we would have to pay $10 for each picture. So I have been working really hard. But I do have a question in regards to, I'm in communications with the Shell Museum in Sanibel.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. With the Shell Museum, who might be interested in helping us with a portion of the pamphlet to provide us with graphics of the two different kinds of seashells. I wish I had it in my.
But do we have, I mean,
This
Is that
This
it?
was an old prototype that I was looking at and using, just thought we could use it as for a point of comparison, just to start with, Jen. Is this kind of what you're thinking of?
yeah, is that
This-
is that the old one?
Yeah, I think it is. No, this was a prototype that Bill Veach thought up.
This is current.
Yeah, but we need to,
Right, so is this the kind of,
is that the kind of thing you're thinking of?
3-page or whatever?
So Bill had scheduled a meeting with myself and Allison and Jenny, and he had brought that along with another prototype that he had an idea that would be really good for us. And if that is something that I cannot, make a determination whether or not what is good for MRF or what isn't. So Bill had brought something like this, and if you want to pass that along and that's something that you're interested in, that's not at all what I had in mind.
So what do you have in mind? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Do you
Well,
have-
we had discussed that again months ago, but basically more generalized. With the last, that is,
No, I mean, just the look of it,
Mm-hmm.
I guess is all I'm asking about, not actually the any content whatsoever, but we're looking
oh,
at
correct.
this format.
Yes.
This is the format we're gonna have.
Possibly, if they can actually put all the information.
Well, you would just keep expanding it out, wouldn't you, if you can't get
Yeah.
enough in? I mean,
So,
See, that's what I was
instead
thinking
of
about.
like 3, you'd make it 4, 5, or 6, or 9, depending on how much content you
Well,
want in there. I mean, that's what I'm
so
trying to get
another
at.
thought I was having is because maybe all of us have a different idea of what a pamphlet should be. So maybe I should go ahead and put that back on to MRF to decide on what they want, and then we can do that as a committee. Because I would hate to make a mistake, pay $500 and then bring something back, and then everyone is, got their, want to put their information in, and then we have to pay additional dollars. So I don't want to be responsible for messing something up, I guess what I'm trying to say. I had an idea, and I'm concerned that I'm not gonna
you
meet
tell
up to the
Tell us
expectations.
the idea, I guess, again.
Yeah, the idea was about that size. A map, not a street map, but just a map to show our natural resources, like Bowditch Point Park and Newton Park and Matanzas Pass, and kind of a map or an arrow saying here's where you go for Lover's Key, but
Right,
and
the
then
specific municipal.
and then talking about what we see on our beach access signs, and then a little seashell guide and a bird guide, just
Like in each, let's say you separate it sort of like that. In each panel? Is that a fair word to use, panel?
yeah.
Right, so like this is 12 panels. But what, I think that that's too much. I think you only
Well,
want 6.
we
You
don't-
only want a trifold.
Again, I'm gonna
That
have
gives
to
you
then,
6 big ideas.
yeah.
Or do we want 12 big ideas?
You have to remember
I
the,
think we want 12. I think that the challenge is, right, is the amount of information we want.
And so one of those ideas is gonna be the map. Okay, and so I think if we decide on that, do we want 12? Then what we need are 12 talking points. What are our 12 panels? And then we'll just decide how we're gonna lay it out.
That sounds reasonable. Do you know what your suggestions right now are for by panel? Does that make sense? I mean, could you work with that idea, panels, to communicate those?
See, I already went to Panther Printing, and we had already discussed everything of how things are gonna be laid out. To be honest with you, I cannot remember how everything's gonna be laid out. I apologize, but, the idea was, that size.
So there's
It's
something
not gonna be a
forthcoming.
book, and what I really liked about Councilman Veach's idea is that he wanted to tell a story about our community, and there is so much history, and I love that idea. However, many people that
So many of
come,
the titles are so clever.
yeah,
I
they're,
mean, like, they pick your interest.
yes.
And that's what you want. When you want someone, they want to open it. They want to see
Right,
what's next.
but unfortunately, that's not what people want.
What do they want, Jen?
They want a seashell guide. They want a bird guide. That's what they go for the most when they're coming. And now it's been over a year that we've been doing this pop-up, and the draw is
the guides.
the seashell guide. That's what gets them in, and then all of a sudden they see what we have more to offer here on this island. Most people that come here and visit don't even know about Mound House. And I tell them, and many people tell them, and they're like, what? And they're so excited to explore Matanzas Pass and Preserve and Lover's Key and Bowditch. And what draws them in is almost like a hook. It's a selling point. And so a story, they can go to the library, which we also tell them about, but we need to draw them in. And we are spending, I believe, 30 cents each copy that I make for a seashell guide that I give to someone. And I thought that 30 cents each copy that I bring in to the town front desk could go towards going towards a pamphlet that we could make into something that would draw people into the Murph pop-up, but also be a good promoter for our natural resources. So
I just want to kind of advocate for Jen a little bit. She's done a lot on this on her own, and I really don't think it, and I'm gonna implore you not to give it back to the group, because as a committee, it's not gonna get done, I don't think, because we do each have our own ideas. I feel like you're the one at the pop-up every time. You know what people are asking for and wanting, and I really think that you do have the right idea on where where we're trying to get to with this. And I think what I've seen and with a little bit we've talked about, I really think she's on the right direction personally. And I think the outcome of where she's getting to, even though it takes time and it takes money, she's on the right track. So if I could kind of clarify what you're asking for us is, do we have any specific things to help tell the story Jen is trying to tell, then just get them to you, right? So you have a section for shells, you have a section for birds, you know, hypothetically. So like, do we have anything we want to add to these sections? And maybe could you give us, so we have the 12 panels, and I know you're still working on it, but once you have the 12 topics for each one, or however it's gonna flow.
Yeah, I'm not laying it out.
Right, but could you give us, could we potentially like maybe get a list?
Yeah,
But it
you can
sounds like-
actually go to the town, fortmyersbeach.gov, look up the last one that was, and I don't believe it was ever printed, but it's a pamphlet that was,
You're kind of building off that.
yeah. And then we also have one that was printed.
The
So-
blue one, you mean? Are you talking about,
No, yes, the blue one.
that was
But
printed?
we also, that was printed. I'm talking about the one that's on the town's website.
I
Who developed that one?
guess what I'm saying, I personally trust the direction she's going on from.
Yeah, I mean, that's
And I think
my,
she's-
hey, as a chairman, that's my concern, is just to make it inclusive. I mean, I personally, I think
Yeah, I
don't
don't
have
wanna
any
waste
real
anyone's time.
opinions on anything, really, because there's more creative people here. But what I'm hearing is that there's something that's actually gonna be put together and brought for you to share with the group.
Yes, I'm
from
just
Panther.
trying to save money and,
Okay.
and ask for people's pictures and graphics.
Then I think
and-
everybody's okay with that, right? Because when they bring something, it will just be missing graphics and stuff, right? I mean, it'll be, the layout will be there, and they'll say, okay, you wanna fill in this.
Yeah, but I just don't wanna give the okay and then they come back with, okay, we're gonna charge you $10 per picture, which they will. So I wanna make sure that we have all
So
the
where's it at? What's the actual thing that?
I'm
where's
just
it at?
waiting
It's
for
with
graphics.
Panther, and then they're gonna give it to you.
Yeah. Pink Panther, I've already spoken with them. They've got the idea, but I'm just waiting for graphics to submit to them and then give
So
them
that's
the
something
okay.
that we help you with, or?
Well, I've been asking you guys for months to, if you have pictures, specifically close-up pictures of the 5 birds, of the 5 nesting shorebirds, if I can get that, if, just anything. But you really, I think I may have it. I did receive a USB from Jenny Dexter, but the only thing is there's other things I'm looking for. So I'm waiting on a few other things. So, but I'm working on it, and if you all trust me to do the best I can, then I will proceed. However, if you have any questions, and I'm willing to give it back over to the committee to,
So I think the
handle.
question, maybe, the only question I have is that the next time we see it, it'll be a finished product. Is that,
no.
no, okay.
No, this is not gonna be a finished project.
Okay.
I
that's-
will give them all the pictures, all the graphics that I think would get out exactly what we want, in the pamphlet, and then they will come back with, I believe, a prototype, and then I will share it with you.
Perfect.
I'm just-
That's all we
Gonna
needed.
need help with that.
So
Because
the-
some of us could submit, what?
Yeah,
150
actually,
words?
I've asked you whether or not you had any input for the past couple months, and I haven't received anything. But I think we have enough input just from the past 2 pamphlets that have been put out. The last one was printed. The one on, if anyone has their phone, they can go onto our Murph point and then pull up on .gov, and I think there's really enough content to be put into a pamphlet that is just, not too wordy, but gets out exactly what we all, I believe, why we joined Murph. It's the graphics that I'm looking for, and like I said, the hook. which is the bird guide and the seashell guide. Now, again, I did have a great conversation with the Shell Museum, who said that they would love to maybe participate and give us their seashell guide that they actually share and give out as handouts with their logo. But now that is, it's an organization, but it is for profit. So I don't know, how that works, whether or not we are okay to, use graphics from a for-profit organization. I'm not sure. So maybe that's something, that was the biggest question I had. If they allow us to use the seashell guide and their logo, is that okay for us to use?
There's also a Shell Club associated with that, which is not for profit. My wife is a member of it.
Well, I would have loved that information.
I'd like to chirp in on something here. Now, I sat down with Jennifer and some of the town staff, and we talked about the program. Now, where I thought we left it is, you can spend the money to go and get a mock-up or get, what you get from the graphic designer from, was it Panther? Was it? But then there's also the other idea, and that's something grander. Now, those of you who have been through like the Florida Master Naturalist program know that you're trying to create empathy. You're trying to tell a story, not just give information. And the idea there is more, instead of going to a graphic designer, is to go to someone who does the interpretive kind of stuff. I mean, going to a professional, the kind of people that work with a mound house, to come up with their interpretive signs that are experts in doing interpretive work and creating empathy. So, and I know that Jennifer's been working hard on this for a few months. I've also been involved with it for years now. So I'd like to at least keep the option open of us doing a grander project that has more information, whether it's a big fold-out or whether it's a booklet, but something that maybe is not only environmental, but also has some of the cultural aspects of the island in it, like the mound house and things like that.
Well, my concern, I know you're gearing up here, is like, my concern is that we, as members of MRF, cannot meet in subgroups to help work on this. There's that.
You're right.
And so that is a problem in my mind, because it's like, well, I would love to sit down and work with Rob or Wendy or Mary Rose or Steve or whomever on this project. And it's like, we can't do that.
I think we can when it comes to the pamphlet, though, because as long as it's already a discussion and we're already...
If it's going to come down to a decision, like if you say if the Panther design is choice A, and going a different direction with let's not say a different direction, but going with a grander, professionally laid out one is plan B. If that decision is going to come in front of MRF, then it does prohibit you from talking about it. However, you can all talk to me. I can't talk to you, the counselors, but I can talk to you all individually if you have any ideas or anything. And I think part of the idea that I liked is that, Jennifer, I appreciate your being frugal with the money, but she has a vision. She's working with people, and she can come. Can have something that she can bring in and says, "Here's what it is," right? Now, going with the other design where it's all professionally laid out, and all the content is professional, that's harder to do that with, because you have to sit down with somebody and you're going to pay them money just to, talk about it. So.
Pressure is on. I don't want to disappoint anyone. The content is going to be the same as if anyone has seen the last 2 MRF pamphlets. I'm not telling a story. So although I love Bill Veach's pamphlet, that's not what I had brought to Panther Printing. What I brought to them was the map, just a basic map from the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm just asking basically for the same information of what we all have, or actually the past MRF, the past 2 pamphlets that the MRF has come up with. Bill, who designed the past pamphlet that's
No.
on the website?
This is the beach do's and don'ts?
Nope. the pamphlet that's on our website.
I'm looking at the website, and
Go to Murph.
I was at Murph, that's right behind the do's and
Yeah, and it gives you different ones, and it says, I believe, it's got the new logo.
It's got, I see, it's got outreach, do's and don'ts, guide to beachfront ordinance and regulations, native plants.
It's where.
So what I'm hearing is that
Anyhow, so
we've got a product, we've got something coming, a mock-up.
I'm looking for one, an okay, if it's okay, to you. So I had approached the museum, Shell Museum in Sanibel. Can anyone tell me if I'm allowed to continue to work with them, and are they allowed to give us graphics and to be able to use their logo? Because I'm not gonna.
We just have to have the rights.
So if they say yes,
They say yes, and it's, and I think if you're dealing with like another kind of nonprofit kind of place,
it's not a nonprofit though.
then they may want to charge you for the rights.
Yeah, and I think they're gonna do it because we're.
Yeah,
you know,
or at least maybe have a
educational.
mention of them somewhere, right?
Right,
Their logo somewhere.
But that's okay for me to put logos, or for me to,
If you go down to like the interpretive signs that are at the demonstration garden, you see pretty much everybody who's involved in it gets their logo on it. It starts to look like one of those jerseys you get when you go for a run,
Yeah.
you know? So, it's more the merrier. So it looks actually better, I think, from a standpoint, if you have lots of different people who are contributing, it shows it being more of a team effort, you know?
I just want to remind everybody too that any government image that's provided by a government institution is free to reproduce.
so FWC would be free, so I. could
FWC, all
use-
FWC's images,
Right, I'm just looking,
if I'm throwing out all of
for
government,
example, it would be, I think Fort Myers Beach trademarked their logo. So I don't know if anybody can just take that and use it.
I'm thinking more of photograph, images, logo's an image.
You know, a lot of times you go to the sites and it'll have whoever the photographer's name is on it.
Strike that. Well, that's because they're using it, right?
Yeah.
Are you saying we couldn't use FWC's,
Birds.
yeah, the bird guide, the 5?
I believe you can. Maybe
Someone had
the
told
issue is if there's actually a credit there, that they're being allowed to use it, which means you'd have to get that same credit but there's a jillion of them out there that.
Yeah, so maybe they don't own it, but they're using it with someone else's permission, and you'd have to get that permission.
Correct.
Now, this is, Jennifer, this is not to do the first layout, but before we're gonna go and print them and hand them out. That's something I know Jennifer Dexter is, And the other thing is, when you get into colors and all that kind of stuff, there's branding issues.
I'm sorry,
When you get into colors,
can you back up for a minute
PMS.
about, Jennifer Dexter?
yeah, she was talking about making sure that you have the rights to whatever you're using.
Yes, of course. Yeah. That's what I've been working on, is making sure I've got the rights to use everything.
And-
So, but
I would think that, at this point, I know you're really close, and you've been working on this for a long time. I just recommend, if we're only doing it to look at it, if you're just going into the printer and saying, this is just, step one before the multiple steps before we actually get to printing them, then I don't think you have to worry too much about the rights. You may have to, swap out pictures, the worst case.
well,
Right.
no, I need the
Placeholder.
graphics.
Yeah.
It's not about looks, I need the graphics from people. So, for example, I'm waiting for the map from the Commerce, and then I'm also waiting for, I love the beach access sign. The one that basically says it all. And I love putting that. And Jenny Dexter gave me a picture of that sign, but I think the actual graphics of that would be really nice on the pamphlet. So I'm just waiting for information to come in.
And that's also a thing to go to, when you go to, Panther Printing, you give them a copy of that.
It do-
We want it to look like this, right?
No, it doesn't work quite that way because they will charge you for every little thing. And I know I
Well, when they come to colors, like color scheme is important, those kind of things.
yeah. Anyhow, so I'm happy to continue working on it if my committee trusts me. Otherwise,
Now, how much money you're talking about? I thought you were talking about like $450 or something.
it's $450 plus $10 for each additional, picture that they have to include. Also, if it's different,
Tell them
if,
to put placeholder
pictures yet.
Shorebird.
well, anyhow.
Yes, placeholder
So I'm
shells.
trying to
And we'll
get
to
all my ducks in a row before I put this through, and I would hope that you would all support that, and that I promise I will do my best to bring something good. But if you all have a different idea, then I'm very respectful to whatever you would like to do.
Yeah, I don't think all your ducks have to be, there could be a couple out sniffing around over there.
I like my
Can you give
ducks
us, can
in
you
a
give
row.
us, can you give us the format without the pictures in there? You know what I mean, Jennifer? Show us, like if you have the 12 panels, show us what each one is going to be without the photos. No, that's not doable? I'm not trying to be difficult. I don't
I was in
understand.
marketing for a lot of years, and I still
Okay,
struggle with
so
it.
here we go.
You just put a,
Here's the one right here. That's the one that you have.
Yeah.
And the thing is I don't know I'm not a graphic designer, so I don't know how to put things, but I was thinking a map here,
So one panel is a map, okay.
or maybe even just a half a map. See, I don't know what will lay out. I don't know the layout. So I could draw something and think that that's the best idea, but it may not fit.
But isn't that what we have to tell them? Like, this is what we want
No,
to stress.
that's
We
what
want to
we're
stress this
paying
and
for.
this.
So I give them, like Dr. Fossum said, the content. I give them the pictures. They're the ones that are supposed to lay it out and see if it works I cannot lay it out because I don't know the best way. I can give them the content and I can give them the pictures and the graphic, but I cannot figure out how things are laid out.
So like,
That-
so like what I
But you
mean.
know what you want on that, you know what you want on those 12 panels.
Not what I want, what our committee would want.
Okay, what we want. I'm sorry, Jennifer.
It's okay.
And I do, I trust you implicitly, you know that.
Okay.
So, what have you said to them, what we want to emphasize is the identification of animals and plants, and only a minimal amount on rules, or it's just that we haven't decided yet?
Well, do you have an idea?
I've got lots of ideas. I think these are
I've been
great, and
asking them though,
yeah.
Mary. I've been asking for your input. So any input that you want me to give them, I will give them. But I need you to email Chad to send to me so I can give that to any input I'm welcome to. But
No, I was just looking carefully at the wording, and what I would like to do is make sure all of the wording is positive. For example, when it says, please don't pick or disturb native plants, I'd rather say, that's why we don't pick or disturb our plants.
Okay.
That type of thing.
yes, that's an input
I
that
think that's
would
important.
love. So can you send that to me?
I will be happy to do that. Yes, I will do that. And if we have, well, I have other ideas too. I will send them to you.
Thank you.
But I don't want you to think I've not been thinking about it, but I've been letting it go because I do trust you, Jennifer.
I know you do. I'm
Okay.
just saying that again.
Continue.
like
I can't
Mary-
wait to see what you come up with.
Again, it's, so just as, it was brought up that we can't have meetings and we can't have conversations outside of the meeting, I have to kind of just go with what I have. But I've been asking for a couple months for input and for you all to send me, Ranger Rob, you sent me the last thing, which was great, Bill Veach. So please, I've been holding back because I'm hoping that you guys will send me the information that you would like to submit for Panther Printing to proceed with the pamphlet. But I want to, I want to do a good job, but I also want your input. So I think we can move on unless someone else has got anything else to say in regards to the pamphlet.
I think we've exhausted the matter.
Thank you. Let's move on.
Murph, budget. So this was, Chet and I discussed, actually, the thought was to start thinking about, actually, of all things, to the 2023 budget. But there's a couple things I think still under this year's budget that we had wanted to finalize. One thing I brought last meeting but didn't have anything to share was I was gonna ask you all if you wanted to reproduce some of these seasonal signs, as some have been stolen. I can't remember what these cost, Bill. I mean, I think it's nominal.
Pretty cheap, yeah. I think
Yeah, it's very nominal. But then as I got looking at them, I thought, well, right now, we actually don't have them at each of them. And then there are some new accesses, are there not?
Well, there's gonna be one more access.
There's gonna be one more access at the south end, but then there's that Gulf access, and those don't actually have access numbers. I mean, are we interested?
That's something that the, well, I think, Chad, have you been working on that, or it's just been the attorney about the accesses, the right-of-ways, or that don't look
The
platted?
neighborhood accesses?
Yeah. Is that what you're calling them?
Yeah, I mean, they're deeded to, neighborhoods like plats.
But a lot of them, when you go on the LIPA site, they don't show any strap at all.
Oh, because they're
What do you call them, Chad?
Like neighborhood access?
neighborhood access, so
Neighborhood
they're not
access.
public technically.
Correct.
Okay,
So
okay.
the consensus was that trying to convince 100% of the neighborhood plus whoever the easement is actually owned by is just not feasible.
Well, I think though, yeah, this is the point I think that maybe the attorney was working on, is figuring out the legal ownership. Because I know there's one, like Anchorage and Remar, that's between a couple of houses, that you look on LIPA and it shows nothing there. It shows just like a street. So it doesn't have, and I think technically we always have to go look how it was platted, maybe. So
Well,
it's a bit of a
it
legal
depends on if it's an easement or if it's actually owned separately.
And if it's owned separately, it should have a strap number, right?
Right, so,
Or it wasn't, or it's owned but wasn't recorded.
I can go through, I can show you what I have and show you the different examples. A lot of them are easements, like if you look at, for instance, an easy one to look at is the one that's owned by Riviera that is deeded to the Bay Beach EBIA. So you won't see that as a separate piece of property because Riviera owns it. So in order to get that public, we would have to convince, 16 condos worth of people being Bay Beach plus Riviera condo to make that public, just as an example. Not that we're trying to do that, but
But this is in reference really to the beach renourishment, correct? I mean,
The more public beach accesses you have, the more
Right.
money you can get for beach renewal. And, it's to simplify it.
Right.
I know there are, I think at least with the ones that are there are at least ought to be some that are just walking beach accesses. Do you know what I mean? Where they're not, you can't drive and park. They're just a path.
Right, yeah.
That is public because it's not owned by anybody. But I don't think we've come to that determination to all of them yet.
Okay, but basically, this is still, I mean, you have a copy, it's still the comprehensive list of what we would consider beach-owned and maintained accesses.
yep,
11 through 36, I guess, right?
yes, sir.
Okay. So there's nothing additional or any other needs, so,
I think, yeah, so there may be some on the south end. There's the one across from Albatross. And there is one coming in at the new carousel, both onto the wide open beach down there.
6.
I think the one on Albatross is between, is it Point Estero and Gullwing? And so that's a proper public access.
Well, that's the new one you're saying.
It was new with the, I think it's the Point Estero development, put that in there as a kind of a quid pro quo. And the carousel is the same kind of deal where before they finish phase 1 or phase 2, I can't remember, I think that has to be recorded as a public access easement.
And the owner is the property owner, not the town.
What's the question?
Property owner is the
I think in the case when they had like a deeded
public, but it's,
public, it means it's either deeded to the town or it's right away.
okay.
Yeah, it's deeded as a public access for that specific use.
Okay, so the town actually maintains it.
It depends on how the easement is the language of the easement.
All right, I'll leave it off. I mean, I'm just, that was my concern for this particular topic.
That doesn't even been,
Was there any more to add? Is there any more that we could add? But, so at this point, there's 8 that aren't covered, and 2 of them actually, there's just no place to hang them. One's Connecticut. I mean, there's just no place to drill these things in anywhere. You had it on that palm
oh, the palm, yeah, the wood,
structure, exactly, and that's gone now, I think, so that's the problem. So it'd be about 6 of them, and then I'll just figure that one out then.
and there was one that I never made before, but because rights, there was some graphics I didn't have, and it had like, a line through the middle, and one side there was an ashtray, and the other side there was a palm tree. And one side said ashtray, the other side said not an ashtray.
That's a pretty good one. But actually, I think Jenny has one also. I think I loaned her, so I'll have to get that one back, and then it'll only be a few of them, 5 then.
So you can order some more?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, yeah, I don't know if you have a,
I like them. I think they're nice and clean.
yep, and any of them that are truly seasonal, some of them are staying up there permanent, actually. It's not necessarily seasonal, the ones that don't have a seasonal aspect to them.
Right, like turtles.
Like turtles are the ones that are being taken up and down, even the shorebirds pretty much stay, enjoy, don't destroy. I mean, that's not seasonal.
Right.
I don't know, I've talked to so many people on my street that I had brought up the sign and,
About
Oh.
what?
about our sign
What's your
on
sign?
Miramar Street.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's,
Trash to restrictions.
yeah, it's also,
And they don't like that one? I mean, what's your point? I
no,
guess?
they don't see it. They've never seen it, and they walk the beach every day. And maybe it's just because they live on the street and they're just so accustomed to just
Have you seen it?
bypassing.
It's
Oh,
there.
of course,
I
yeah.
confirmed it all
Well,
day.
yeah, of course. But I speak to people all the time, oh, have you seen the sign? And nothing.
I have sign blinders. Actually technically have sign blinders. I really don't.
Yeah,
Who sees signs? Are are visitors seeing signs? Are the
Technically, whoever walks
community?
by
I
should
mean,
be seeing
who
it,
is actually seeing signs?
The dogs pee on them. That's about.
now, I see people out, like, looking at our interpretive sign on Connecticut Street, 'cause I see it from my deck. I see them there. I see people going up to turtle nests and reading the signs on turtle nests.
When I, did-
So some people do. I
When I
mean,
did
they're,
the certified
lot
interpretive
don't.
guide program, they broke it down on like how people learn.
Yeah.
And it's like, this hypothetically, I think is how it is, but it's like only 5% read the entire sign. 10% will get the highlights, the bold points. 20% look at the pictures, and the rest walk right by. So it's a very low, but it's still impactful. Like, it still gets people, because other people notice other people looking sometimes. And I think the sillier ones, the shorter ones, like, even if it's not silly, enjoy, don't destroy, or like your mom called kind of thing. That's more, I know it's silly and stupid, but it still is more memorable than, the list of don't do this. And like ashtray, not an ashtray. Those kind of things stick with people. I think those are the ones that would be more beneficial in this capacity because it's quick and anybody can read it,
Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
So staff was looking for some feedback on if we can just get budget items that y'all want to have in the 2023 fiscal year, at least the ideas, and then maybe next meeting we can get the figures so that, we're coming into budgeting season where we have to make decisions for next year's budget. So we
Right.
need numbers behind items.
and how much have you spent this year? Like, what's the budget number for the pop-up?
What's interesting is I think
much does
we
that cost
just,
me?
I mean, we didn't even start talking about budgets until it seemed like a couple of months ago. Right? I mean, it just didn't seem to me like we've had a full fiscal year with this budget. I mean, we're still talking about what we're gonna do with it.
Sure, fiscal year
It
ends in
carries
October.
over, the actual budget will carry over, so it's not like the money will.
Will it?
be-
I'm assuming it's use it or lose it.
Yeah, a lot of governments use it or lose it, and if you get a $10,000 budget and spend 5, next year you're probably gonna get 5. And that's the
that
way a lot of things work.
Where you're at, that's all.
I'm not in finance.
Budgets work, man.
Yeah, but I wouldn't count anything rolling over. The idea is you're given a budget, and the intent is that you spend that budget over that fiscal year.
Pamphlets for everything.
So,
Well, the difference is this year, it wasn't a bottoms-up budget, let's face it. Here's the quantity, and then we had to
Right.
figure out what we were
I
gonna do.
have big ideas, like, my
That's why it's on
imagination
here.
is I love that Bay Oaks, the new Bay Oaks is the redesign and the stage and I would love for Murph to come up with some ideas. Anyhow, I've got really great ideas. I've also been talking to Tom Barnes with the Lee County Parks and Bowditch Point, and I've got great ideas. And so I feel like the budget could get really big, but I'm not
Well,
ready.
I wouldn't expect it to get really big, but the point is that,
No.
I don't know how much, I don't know where we are for the $10,000 that was allocated last year, but as far as your brochure project, spend it now to go to the, Panther Printing and get something you can bring back to the committee, because if you wait, we're gonna also, we've had our last council meeting for the year, or not for the year, for this season. We start up again in August. So then you have August, September's the next budget cycle. So you're coming to the time when now is the time to spend the money, if you have it.
Right.
And don't worry about, and also the thing is if we, and then hopefully by September, you spend the money now, we get some idea where we're gonna go, if we're gonna go with the Cadillac or the Hyundai, and then going into next budget by September, you have an idea of what that'll cost.
Actually, I'm not holding back on the pamphlet because of money. To be honest with you, I'm holding it back so it can save us all time in discussion on whether or not we want something in there or we don't.
I would say exactly, don't mean to contradict you, but the other way is that the way to advance this is maybe spend the money to come up with something, and if you show it to everybody and they go, this is great, we're gonna go this way because we can do it, it's more expedient, then you move forward.
Okay.
Instead of, because I know discussing something that is a physical graphics, discussing it verbally is, I don't know, it's sometimes not the most productive because everyone will visualize something else.
Exactly.
So just to interject, so from Miss Amy, the town clerk, the budgeted monies will be, gone away at September 30th. Any donated monies will carry over, and approximately $7,000 is remaining in the budget right now.
Perfect.
So now's also the time that if there's, I know we talked about some things that pop-up needed, say now's your time to get the approval of the committee and spend the money for it.
Well,
Okay.
again, we only meet once a month, so I've got lots of ideas. So if we're on the discussion, then I would like to have this printed. I'm just waiting on this download, and I will be happy to pass it around. Have you seen that? I don't know. I would love to offer that for the pop-up. It's not gonna be it's gonna be expensive to print this out, even though it's black and white, but I think it just says,
Who's the,
so I'm gonna pass it around, just.
whose is it?
He doesn't need that.
Who's the owner? Who's design, who?
It'll tell you right on the back. But we'll end up putting our, information on it. So if I could go ahead and just get approval from the committee to go ahead and proceed with, getting a quote on this.
Absolutely. I mean, you can do that anytime, actually, your pricing on anything.
I mean, you changed this.
Right, correct. As long as we have the download, which they've already given us, verbal, the people that actually put this out said yes.
That's
We
the
just-
little activities book?
so
where you-
It's an activities book, but it's a great thing. And then if I can just, since we can only, I'm just gonna go ahead and put that out. If I can look into other, printouts and activity books that we may have to pay for, then, I will proceed with looking into, getting quotes, and I will then send those quotes and information to Chad and Mr. Veach, Councilman Veach, and then I will hope that that gets to you. You can then give me the okay. I believe we need, 3 or 4 people to say okay, but anyhow. As long as people give me the go-ahead, then I can go ahead. And I can get a lot of things done this month if I can get your all approval to proceed with looking for activities for the pop-up.
That sounds great.
Okay, thank you.
So, but in general, everybody has that same opportunity. So here's the
Yes,
deal, I think.
absolutely.
Right now, obviously we had budgeted for the pop-up, so you have your regular supplies, that should be whatever that remaining budget is, which was, I think, the majority of it. And then there was what we called the big event, which again, if somebody has an idea, again, by this next meeting, you should come with specifics, so not just an idea. I think you have to come with a pretty good number,
End quotes.
and then how to execute it. So through the end of September for the remaining budget, and then also for 2023, your idea, and again, it's gotta be a pretty concrete idea with a pretty good cost to it. I mean, again, it doesn't have to be quoted out at this point, but you need to have at least a good idea of what it would cost.
And I think too, an overall budget for your pop-up too, because the idea is, okay, now you've been doing it for a while, you know how long your tents last, you know how fast you go through your handouts, you know how much you're spending on stuff. And so if you can write it all down and say, I need, $3,000-4,000 to be able to stock the pop-up for a year, that's a good number to have going into the next budget cycle.
Right, literally a little mini budget, right, that you, yeah.
Well, we went through 4,000 in 6 months, or actually 5,000. And a lot of money from my own pocket, so.
So is that $7,000 too? That'd be interesting, because you had actually attracted donations as well, of up to, what, $3,000, I think, right?
No, just 1,000 so far. So if Chad is correct, that would be 7,000 still left over from our town budget.
Okay,
I have a $2,200 check here, so I still have money, and this is, specifically for Murph, so, or for the pop-up. Or it could be, I guess, for anything, but
And that-
2,250 from Kiwanis.
That's the thing to hold on to too, because as Chad said, that rolls over.
This rolls over,
donations would roll
Right.
You want to
over,
spend the money that doesn't roll over first.
right.
Right. Okay,
Oh, but I have no doubt that my community will continue supporting, so I don't worry about holding on to certain funds. I have 100% faith that my community will continue supporting, only because they have seen so hard we have worked to educate and promote a healthy environment.
okay, so for July, hard ideas, dollars, everything.
Could I throw out a couple ideas that I brought today, just for people to think about?
Absolutely.
Okay. On Sanibel, they run some small ads. They actually run them in their beach papers. Like this one is not to purchase rodent killer for rats or mice, so because it kills other things. And so it's just a little blurb about what to do instead. And it's the ads are purchased by Crow or the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. So I checked with our Beach Observer. To get a little ad like that is like $86 for 1 week. They'll give us a deal if you purchase them for like every quarter. And we could do other ads as well. And also, she gave me prices for doing a quarter size page ad. And they also have their e-edition of the Beach Observer, which is $50 for a little square that anybody went online and looked at the digital edition, they could view. So we could put information in there. Turtles, shorebirds, native plants, whatever.
That might be something we need to check on the policy of the town,
Of purchasing ads.
because these others are nonprofits.
The other thing is, Sanibel came up with window clings. Not only in their condos and hotels do they have posters in the elevators and stuff on the light switches, but they also bought window clings. And of course, some family donated
These
the
for turtle
purchasing
lights?
of $5,000, yes, for sea turtles. It says after 9, it's turtle time, close your curtains and blinds or turn off your lights. So I've contacted them, they have not gone back to me with the price of that. But that is also something we might want to invest in. And then
These are good ideas, but I think Turtle Time has those.
people, yeah, and they might,
Yeah, I think they have in the past.
Yeah, I know, she just gave me
Stickers.
some this year.
yeah, I don't know how many they have, or if they have enough for all of Fort Myers Beach. And then the other thing is, kids are out of school, it's Oceans of Possibilities. That's the summer reading program. Don't know if we wanted to sponsor that or not. And this is the little Turtle Time. Just thoughts, just thoughts.
Thank you, Rose. That's perfect. So you can, those are our thoughts, and I'd ask everybody to bring those for the next meeting, because we're gonna have to get down to brass tacks. So actually, let's go to the Murphy. Do we have any Murphys? Do we have any Murphy recommendations here?
You had one in the bank.
We do have one in the bank. I'm looking for my bank.
I don't know who they are, but somebody told me there's a crew of neighbors who take a wagon and go out and fill in holes at night on the beach. Has anybody come in contact with them? I've been looking for them and not see them. Okay.
We had one in the bank here.
Chair, may I, just in regards to this, what Rose had brought up about the alternative to, so are we allowed to go ahead and put something in the paper? I'm not talking about from Crow or SCCF, but are we allowed?
You know, it's, we're here as at the mercy.
I mean, if our
of
MRF
town council.
budget can
If the
allow
town council
something.
wants the, an
just
advisory
not
board to do advertising, I'm not, you know,
Maybe not.
I'm not sure, and the reason is, there's certain things that town doesn't do, like you can't, recommend, Bob's Burger because they've done something good for Murph. We don't tend not to,
No, I'm
and we
talking
have,
about
and
the
we have a
message.
PIO.
that's what I'm saying, so, I don't know. I'd have to see what the
Message is
policy
what I'm
is.
talking about. I'm not talking about the advertisement. I'm talking about the message. I mean, if we've got, if we have budget, why couldn't we use our budget for messaging with our local papers?
That's the question.
Yeah, maybe
That's a question.
advising council to give staff direction on public information messages.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, technically, we have free space in the Observer for the Shoreline Spotlight, the Murph.
Yep.
I mean, if we wanted to, I'm sure the Beach Talk Radio would allow us to put in an ad or put in something to their newsletter if we asked them. They would
I'm not
probably
saying,
do that.
I'm not saying a particular, source. I'm just saying, could we use our budget for putting information out?
that's when Rose brought it up, I said, I'm not really not sure,
Okay,
really not sure.
just want to.
It was even to the point, when we had the Sandpaper and the Observer, and we started writing stories for them, we'd alternate between the papers. So we
Okay.
weren't showing favoritism to anyone. And I think there's actually a few papers out. There's the one, the monthly, that's out. There's a few. So if you just go to one, are you not being fair to the others? And there's some that are not real papers. Maybe the coupon book would complain they were not putting ads in them. That's just the potential conflicts you could have.
How is it that we're able to do our monthly spotlight?
We don't pay for that.
So it's donated to us. It's
Well, you can say.
spot is
We're
donated.
providing content.
You can say, we donate content, and they donate the space to put it there, but it's voluntary.
Right.
Gotcha. Sorry, I
Now we're gonna have to
apologize.
build a communication plan here, using available resources, our PIO, our messaging for the year. So, but back to Murph, the Murphy. What, we had one in the bank.
The Coast Guard.
Indiana Girls. I don't know what the heck I did with that. It's gotta be here. We had, the Sea Turtle Conservancy was a Murphy last month, as well as Doc Fossum's for June, which hasn't hit yet, and And so the one last month,
Was it a Coast Guard?
I'd have to
From-
look, there
Jennifer,
was,
was it a Coast Guard from you?
Yes, a Coast Guard was out there cleaning up the beach and on their own time. And, I mean, they really do a great job.
Oh, is this a new one, or is this, no, I'm trying to think about the old one. So this is a new one you're coming up with?
No, it's the one that
This is-
yeah.
Yeah, from last, yeah.
They really were out there having a great time and stopped
I
by.
move we take it.
They're really
I make a
great.
I make a motion that we award the Murphy to the Coast Guard. Have a second?
I'll second that. No, third.
Discussion? Discussion, you have a photo?
I have a photo and a story from them all, and they are
Probably got a few
great people.
Policeman and fireman photos too, you like to carry around too.
You got real red, real fast.
Meow. Okay, just joking. You know I'm joking.
I'm married.
Of course. Yes, to Mr. Wonderful. Let me tell you that. He is. Chris is Mr. Wonderful. Any objection? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. And then for next month, we've got July is Rob, Ranger Rob Howell. You're the man for the article.
I can do it.
Okay, Rocket in July. Rocket Ranger, Rob. Okay, so there we have it. Last but not least, members' items and reports, starting with Wendy.
I have nothing to.
Did you say that misdirection? Nothing? Okay, Rob?
Nothing here.
Just to see turtle update, the number of nests is in the mid-40s, and my understanding is it's we're a little bit above average for this time of year. And the other thing I want to say is that I regret to inform you, I will not be here for next month's meeting.
Okay, well, you can send any budget ideas.
I
directly
certainly
to,
will.
To Chad,
I
and copy
will.
the chair, if you don't mind. Beautiful. I have a couple, just couple quickies for members' items reports. I got out too late today, just so you have it when you get home, if you have a chance to take a look at it. But there's two items. One was TerraCycle cigarette butt recycling. It was provided to us by Jan Fleming to Town Council, and it was forwarded to me both by the Vice Mayor, Rexanne, and then also Jim Adderholt, for something we might want to consider. It looks like a fantastic program. And if you talk about maybe what we can do with budget dollars, that would be one of them. However, I know that the state is allowing, is not preempting cigarette butt or non-smoking ordinances for towns. Bill, do you know anything about that?
Apparently, yeah, the state is allowing the municipalities to
Okay.
prohibit smoking in the.
However, I thought that through and I thought, well, that would mean that we'd have to enforce that ordinance. So I think that people are still gonna be smoking anyway, I mean, technically. And then certainly off the beach, they may, but have a look at that. It's a completely free program. I mean, if I was just to give you the executive summary here, is you can collect all the cigarette butts you want, and you just set up an account. They'll send you you print out your own prepaid envelope, and you just mail to them at no charge. Has to be packaged properly, which just means in plastic bags. They don't want just junk thrown in a box and sent. I think there's also an odor issue also. But then they also will provide these aluminum sort of cigarette butt disposal units that they could then be emptied from the bottom, probably marshaled to a central area, packed and sent. So, I mean, that would have to involve Public Works, and if that's something the town council is interested in, we can pursue that. But the website information is in your email, so take a look at that. It's an extremely easy program, and that's something that I think we can, well, I don't know, without the town council here, without being able to see town council, I'm not sure we can move forward, but we can at least get things prepared that if we needed to, we could use year-end money and/or budget for next year. And, I mean, a six-pack of these things is $500 for the actual containers. And then from there on, there's no cost literally at all whatsoever, so it's kind of a neat deal. Have a look at that. And then the second item I had was this fella sent me this, Amy Baker had asked him to contact me. But Jude's Water Sports, this is a guy that's attempting to, it's a watercraft business. You know, my initial feedback to him was that's a kind of an issue right now on our waterfront, but it's a possibility that maybe in the Back Bay. but it's really non-internal combustion engines. He's got, 2 boats, 17 foot long, so it's sculling. And he's got a couple of different, of boats he's interested in. It's his little business plan. And I threw it out there to see if it's for you to take a look at, so. Anyway, that's all. Doc, any members' reports?
I won't be here for the July meeting either. I'll be in Moab,
Okay,
Utah.
Moab. Hello.
It's right between Curly Ab and Larry Ab.
I didn't see those on the map.
Colorado joke, right?
It must be. I don't get it.
Okay.
I will be here for the July meeting. I tried to be here at every meeting. But I would ask that for the next meeting that we come up with a plan for enforcement to advise town council for sea turtle lighting specifically. That we can actually all come and come up with some ideas to help town staff implement, enforce, and once and for all get this done. And that we can all be united and work together to make sure that the community, the town council, town staff, that we are all united, and that as long as everyone understands what's expected, and that if you get a visual violation from town, that it's gonna have to be taken care of immediately. Otherwise, there's a fine, and that we don't wait a month, because a month could eventually, potentially harm many hatchlings. So we just all need to work together. And I don't think there should be a divide. I think we should all just work together to come up with a solution and get this done. And I know that the town and town council and town staff has been working really hard. And so we just need to continue to work on it. I don't think it's something we can just sit on for very long or sit on ever.
So what are you actually suggesting?
I'm suggesting that we come up with,
We put it on the agenda.
we put it on the agenda and come up with a plan and advise
A-
town council.
A recommendation to the town
recommendation.
council on
Or specific,
optimizing sea turtle ordinance compliance, enforcement and compliance.
Sure.
That's
Was
what-
I not
That's what I
specific
just
enough?
heard. No, that's
Thank
what I
you.
heard, but I just
I
Thank you.
was
thought
wondering
I'd
if
cut it
you're
to just,
cut to the
thinking
point.
about like
That's that.
civilian patrols, armed with cell phones, that kind of thing. I didn't know what specifically you meant, but.
yeah, but I think, the important thing there is to come with an idea, come with your ideas, and not that we just don't open it up to this big discussion on, and it's not a brainstorming, it's a come with ideas and say, here are items that I think are critical, but also is.
Because other municipalities have done it. They've gone from hundreds of violations down to 2 violations or 2 magistrate violations. So if other municipalities can do it, so can we.
And just so you
Right.
know, the 15%, window tinting is not gone yet, but it looks like the next meeting it will be.
Yeah, I wasn't discussing the window tinting. I was talking about,
But you see, the window tinting is a very,
Enforcement.
I think it's an important measure that reduces the adversarial relationship between
I
enforcement
agree.
Oh, of
and
course.
the owners.
Of
But
course.
it's,
We're a long road away from that, I think.
We're a summer away from it. We discussed it, Bill, while you weren't here.
yeah. But, but we've had these meetings and there's, a lot of the condo owners are there and a lot of the, window manufacturers are there and contractors are there. And we haven't had much of a presence, say why we should keep it. So, Murph has recommended it. I have, but, it's been pretty one-sided in council. And to that end too, just so you all know that the deadline for signing up to run for council is coming up very soon, like the next week. If anybody's interested.
We also, just for the record, appreciate you asking the other town council people if they were okay with killing 10% of endangered species that visit our island.
It's a blunt way to put it, but thank you.
Yep.
Yeah,
So, Rose, members' reports?
I was just back on the cigarette container thing too for Times Square. And I had also looked up, I didn't see your email, but I had also looked up the recycling program, as well as containers anywhere from $20 to $600 and some dollars per container for outdoor cigarette butt recycling, or containers. And my thought is that we should ask the public works people, because they're all different sizes, shapes, the ease of getting in and out of them, repacking the stuff. It's like, it's gonna be their job to do that every week, if not sooner, and it's like, I think they should have some input.
Without question, excellent recommendation. I just suggested these because they weren't part of that TerraCycle program, and that's, could be just they found a vendor that I will direct you to. I don't even know all the logistics of it, but also I think there's a question of, do you dispose of them or do you actually recycle them?
I looked at the website, they recycle them into other things, like that artificial wood and.
Right, but I'm just
They use
saying,
a lot of
that's something
chemicals
that the
to do
town
that.
council would have to decide
So,
based
yeah.
on how they want to direct staff.
But-
So good. Public comment, having none, we'll move on here to setting the agenda for the next meeting. We said we'd leave sea turtle conservation and shorebird conservation on there. Chad, you, sort of just as an ongoing through the season, just to make it more topical. Maybe it won't be as involved this coming. Exotic vegetation can come off, I'd say. Murph pamphlet, is that, will there be something to share next month?
We'll
won't be
see.
here. You won't be here,
Oh,
though.
She'll be here.
no,
She'll be here.
I thought you said you weren't here, July. My
Well, you can, I'll tell you what else, I'll circle that and asterisk
Yeah, I'll
it
let
as we get
Chad
closer. We've
know.
got the week before, yeah.
I'll let Chad
Okay.
know.
We can leave it on.
Murph budget will stay on, yeah, and skip it. And then, up above there is
Sea turtle enforcement.
sea turtle lighting enforcement.
We can include obstructions in that as well.
Pardon me, instructions?
Yeah, just getting some guidance on obstructions and talking about,
Oh, obstructions.
I thought you said instructions.
Is that, I mean, that was, our Councilman Veach had mentioned that may find its way on here. Is that, I know that came up at the meeting. But wasn't there supposed to be a stakeholder meeting with, is it the top, I forgot who it was supposed to be with, but Roger had mentioned that there would be a stakeholder meeting with the watercraft operators.
I think that's more for like
licensing?
zoning and licensing, yeah, not so
Okay.
much sea turtle conservation ordinance.
Because essentially, I think they showed up in order to, while the ordinance was open, to try to suggest some changes.
Correct.
And that, I don't think what was resolved is that they would work individually with staff on a
Correct.
plan.
So the rule is the rule.
Yeah,
If you have a hardship coming into compliance with the rule, give us a plan to come into compliance with the timeline.
well, I'd really like to recognize the Webbers also for the fantastic job they're doing down at the Wyndham.
Yeah, there's a few different vendors.
But that's when I recognized, yeah.
I have a question. If you put palm fronds in front
No,
of all
that
the
doesn't count.
equipment, does that count?
No.
Count for what?
Does it count that?
As a dune?
As a
As a dune?
You talk about
No,
Junkadoos?
it doesn't count as a,
Yeah.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't? So, did they put those palm fronds?
I saw them too.
you'd assume.
I'm just curious what that was all about.
Okay, so are there any other additions to the agenda? that we're missing? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
A second.
Mary Rose got something.
Any discussion? All right, unopposed. Motion carries, 4:06 PM.
Yeah, I'll pay attention. I look forward to it.
Hey, that was 2 hours, 2 hours and 6 minutes.